So before we get to our big discussion of the week, and we've got a big discussion of this week. We're very excited about this.
It is a fun one.
It's going to be a fun one. We want to recommend some podcasts that have recently come out here at Osiris Media. David, what is your first recommendation from Osiris Media?
I'm going to talk about a podcast I've spoken about before. This is the podcast entitled No Simple Road. This is the podcast where you get to hang out on the porch in Portland, Oregon with Aaron, Mel, and Apple. Very awesome crew, workhorses, putting out quality podcasts. God, they were like, even when we started Beyond the Pond, they're one of like the Osiris OGs. So they do an interview with two members of the Owsley Stanley Foundation. I think a guy named Hawk, and then a star writer, Owsley, who I think was actually Owsley's son. Listeners of this podcast and guests will know that Stanley Owsley was both the Acid King and the designer, the mastermind behind the Grateful Dead's Wall of Sound, as well as did a lot of recording of many Dead shows. I think he was like the front of house guy for like the Carousel Ballroom, maybe Fillmore West. So lots of incredible sound recordings. And the purpose of the Owsley Stanley Foundation is they're a nonprofit who's been putting out a lot of Owsley's, or we should say Bear, that's the nickname everyone knows him as, putting out a lot of these concerts under the name Bear's Sonic Journals. And the most recent one they put out was a Johnny Cash show from, I want to say, April of 1968. This was kind of like Johnny Cash meeting the hippies. And this is also shortly before his Live at Folsom Prison album came out. So this was kind of, he wasn't nearly as famous and popular as he was going to become. And it's a really cool, interesting recording. And they talk about how the mix is not what you would expect, in the sense that you have kind of like Johnny Cash's voice in the left and you have the twanging guitars in the right. And that the purpose is they really didn't want to mess with Bear's mix. All the Bear's Sonic Journals, they don't screw with the like original mixes. He believed that this is how the room should sound. This is how he wants things to sound. And it's just a very good conversation between the No Simple Road crew and the Owsley Stanley guys about what's come out, what's going to come out, the care that goes into each of the albums that they put out, how kind of the point of the nonprofit is to raise some money to preserve a lot of this stuff, which is on analog tape, because it's from the late 60s. A lot of it is in danger of like decaying after all this time. Just, anybody who enjoys live music, enjoys hearing about Owsley Stanley and his recordings. This is, there's a lot to dig into here.
That's fascinating. Yeah, the No Simple Road guys, like, I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again, like, I don't know as many podcasts that have just such a vibe as that show. It's just like you listen to it and you feel like you're on the porch with them, and that is such a special thing. I am going to recommend a podcast that we talked about last week in this segment, but released their first official episode with Osiris Media here today as of time of recording. That is The Great Beyond. The Great Beyond is Greg, Bruce, and Joey talking through Goose history, Goose new info, Goose interviews, Goose deep dives, Goose live recaps of Goose Tour, which is kicking off here today. Their first episode, called Born to be Wild, which is a play on the new single released by Goose, Born, which came out about a week ago. They do this really cool thing where they look back at basically Goose over the last 2 years. I can't think of many bands that have had a 2-year journey the way that Goose has since early 2020. And even if you back it up into 2019, that Peach Fest set from summer 2019 is kind of where a lot of us became aware of this band. I had not listened to them prior to the fall of 2019. They play this very, very awesome middle of the day set at Peach Fest, had a huge crowd there, play this amazing version of Arcadia. And throughout the fall, there was a lot of time spent like listening through, okay, what is going on with this band? Wow, they can jam in a really phenomenal way. Their cover choices are absolutely incredible. And oh my God, their lyrics are really, really good. They chart that period, the fall 2019 tour, the spring 2020 tour that happened just ahead of the pandemic, the bingo tour that they played in June of 2020, where they were isolated in Connecticut, broadcast their shows in a way that few other bands were, the drive-in sets and shows from fall of 2020 that gave so many of us, even though we couldn't be in attendance, that like first sense of like a band playing a show that you had to listen back to and really vibe with throughout the fall of 2020. And then this amazing 2021 that the band had that resulted in some incredible shows. First couple times I saw Goose, as well as some incredible jams. So they chart that path. They talk with our good friend Osiris Media CEO RJB about his experiences following Goose, his time interviewing Goose in the early part of 2020, kind of where his thoughts are in terms of where the band is going. So it's a great episode. They'll release every other Wednesday here going forward, as well as every Tuesday. They will be doing live recaps through this winter tour of the previous week of tour. So keep an eye out for that. Those will be super fun as they're charting through kind of the way the band is playing in this soon-to-be unknown tour. Very excited to hear what we have in store for us with Goose 2022. So The Great Beyond, No Simple Road, two excellent podcasts here at Osiris Media.